And here we go.
Hey, thanks for sticking with us as we rebooted our software. For some reason it was running really slow. I guess it's because it's Monday.
It must be because it's Monday.
Well, I'm Jenny.
I'm Paul.
And we're with the GoBox Art Crate and Vingo Artist Bar and Studio, streaming from Sherwood, Oregon.
Sherwood, Oregon.
And you're going to repeat everything I say?
I'm going to repeat everything you say.
Tonight we're going citrus mode. And we're going to paint these orange blossoms. Pretty fun, pretty easy painting. If you get our subscription box, you'll have all the supplies you need. If not, just you can follow along with your own supplies. And I think that's all I need to say other than happy Monday. Thanks for supporting us. You can support us further via Patreon or whatever the coffee thing is. Coffee is a one-time donation. And or subscribe to our subscription box.
Yeah, and we're going to have a membership available here on YouTube here shortly, too, that it would be fairly inexpensive and be just a nice way to support us, and you get some perks.
But let's paint. Let's zoom in.
Zoop. There we go.
Okay, so here's our painting. We opted for a square canvas this month because it's kind of fun to change it up a bit once in a while, and I felt like this painting's pretty designy, so it needed a square canvas.
It's hip to be square.
It's hip to be square. Let's show Paul's painting for next month.
Oh.
That one will be streaming.
Not next month,
next week. That will be streaming next Monday. So his is called City Park, and we both kind of felt like this looks like Seattle, which is pretty cool. Like this little guy is standing at maybe Gasworks Park or something. Looking across.
It's not exactly the same, but it kind of reminds us.
It has a feel.
It has a vibe.
These are really tall trees.
They are.
Really small.
Yeah. And there's birds.
Yeah, that sky will be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I like it.
So for tonight, supplies you'll need are a little handful of brushes of varying sizes. I like to go with at least a 1/2-inch wide wash brush for the basic, getting the basic first paint on there. Colors, we have black and white. We have this beautiful pumpkin orange, chrome yellow, and this is we call it brilliant blue. Mm-hmm. It's a great color we don't use often enough.
Now, I do want to point out that I will be monitoring the chat session, so if you have a question or you need something clarified, go ahead and throw your question on there, and we will do our best to answer it. There is a little lag, so be patient, and we'll get there.
So if you got the kit, you will have gotten an instruction sheet, which you can use to follow along with what I do here. I may change a few things depending on drying time, but yeah, it's front and back and gives all the instructions. And then this month you guys got a Salvador Dali sticker, which has I loved this painting, and the quote is, "Everything alters me, but nothing changes me." It was really hard to find a short Salvador Dali quote, so that one worked, and I kind of liked it, so that's what we went with. Let's put that aside, and I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to paint.
Let's do it.
So we want to start off with our largest brush. Go ahead and dip it in your water cup, brush it across the bottom of the cup, kind of wake up those bristles.
Hey, you bristles, wake up.
And dry it off. They might have a tough time waking up, being that it's Monday. Let's mix up a pale yellow. So we're going to do white and yellow. And I just sort of dab these two colors together. You don't have to like stir and stir till you have one solid color. This one is okay to have it be sort of streaky and marbled.
Can I go in for an equal ratio?
Pretty close, yeah. It doesn't matter if yours is more yellow than the original.
You can always brush white.
We do add some plain yellow paint strokes in there later. But our job right now is we're going to go here to here. So this is going to be, let's just start in this upper corner. My brush strokes, I'm just sort of flipping and flapping the brush all different directions. But go ahead and cover that corner. We're just going to go all the way across. Now it's pretty wide here and here. We only leave just a little bit, maybe, let's see here, maybe about 3 inches of space. Even if you went all the way to the edges, it would be fine. That would be better than going too short.
Always better to go a little further than you think you need to go, yeah?
Yeah. I'm getting a little black residue coming out of my brush.
I do with mine too, but it's kind of, I'm okay with it.
I was painting earlier with one of our new artists that we hired out here in Sherwood for when we open our actual physical paint studio where people can come in and paint. And today we were working with a painting that has a lot of black. And sometimes it's just really hard to get all, every single drop of black out of the paint. Yeah, so for those who are local and plan on coming into this space, which I know there are a few of you who get our box. I love seeing the labels as we're shipping them out. We're like, oh, Wyoming, oh, Missouri, Florida. But yes, we have a lot of Oregon, Washington residents, and some of you guys in Washington even drive in.
It's always worth a road trip.
Yeah, so we're excited to have this place open for you to come in and see where we've been painting for almost a year here.
Yeah, getting pretty
with
close.
Our live streams. Haven't had a lot of time to do some of the backroom stuff that we have to do, like install commercial dishwasher. That's coming up now. Now that we got a fire lit under us with moving out of our Selwood space.
Mm-hmm. For those of you who are outside the Portland area, we're about 35 minutes from downtown Portland, as long as the traffic is smooth.
Cute little Hallmark community of Sherwood, Oregon. Wouldn't you call it? It's like a Hallmark movie community.
I would call it a wannabe Hallmark community.
You're right. That's exactly what it is. So I'm done with this part. Just keep working. I'm mixing up a little more paint. The color of this yellow is definitely very lemon curd. And I did not eat before leaving the house, so it's like,
so did I make lots of food references
Should I try
for you?
it?
Make lots of food references all night.
All right, so what I want to do now, and you can pause this live stream, or if you watch the video after the live stream, which most of you guys do, you can pause it and catch up if you're not to the point I am. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a pale green that's going to fill these two corners. So we're going to do corner to corner. Don't worry about these circles yet. I want to not wash my brush. I'm going to use the corner of it and pick up a little dab of the Brilliant Blue and mix it on in there. And you'll see right away if you need to add more of the blue or if you need to add more yellow or white. I can tell already, I think a little more yellow is going to be what I need. But you do get a pale green. I'll see if I can hold it up. We have like funny shadows going on.
Yeah,
what's with the lighting, Paul? What'd you do? You did
do
something
anything.
different.
Oh, you know what? It's just your water mug.
Really? It's not casting a shadow there.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, so what would you call this color? It's not quite seafoam green and not quite avocado somewhere in between.
Almost a citron, but not quite.
Celery green. Let's brush it in from the corners. As you meet this wet paint, let it fizzle out. So what this is meant to be leaves and foliage in the background that is blurry because it's not the focal point. We will actually paint some leaves and we will paint some foliage, but this is just to indicate that there's much more going on behind these oranges than just plain yellow sky. So I just let these colors intermingle. If you may even wipe your brush off and use it, or wash it and dry it, and just use it as a blending tool. Most of this gets covered up, and I'm not using very much paint here. So try to limit the amount of paint you use. You'll get a lot of little stop and start marks with your brush. I could go darker, I could add more, especially in the corners. I could add more blue just for some depth. But I really want to work while this is wet, so I'm going to start working on this corner before it dries too fast. A lot of people like to paint the edges of their canvas, and if I were doing this painting for myself to hang up or sell or whatever, I would definitely either paint the edges or frame it. But most of our paintings end up in a pile and in a box eventually and donated to Habitat for Humanity. We just donated 504 paintings to Habitat for Humanity, and I don't know, is Habitat for Humanity like nationwide?
Yeah.
You know? Okay.
Yep, it is.
So for those who don't know, Habitat for Humanity builds houses for
low-income
families. And I just had this sudden idea. I was like, why haven't we hooked up with them and given them all our excess paintings? Because they obviously would hang them in the houses, and they were so excited. And we were so excited because taking them all to Goodwill is, well, it's a lot. They get a little overwhelmed because they've got other people waiting to come in to donate stuff, and here we are bringing them 504 paintings. So Habitat for Humanity sent someone to pick them up. He got a parking ticket. It was
like we were literally loading the stuff into the truck, and the meter dude came by. I'm like, shame on you, meter dude. He
was really rude.
You wrote a ticket to Habitat for Humanity.
I'm just adding a little darker green in the corners just because. Yeah, the meter dude was in a really bad mood. I can understand, though. He probably has to deal with a lot of people thinking they can park anywhere. And to be fair, the Habitat for Humanity guy was parked in a zone that was clearly marked.
I don't think it was that
yellow.
clear.
It was pretty clear, but it's okay.
The sign was faded out.
The guy wasn't too worried about getting that ticket.
No, he really didn't care, actually. He's like, I'm not paying for it, so...
But yes, all of our paintings went out that way, and it was just so great. I'm glad that they have that organization. The paintings we donated were at our Sellwood studio. We just moved out, and we have duplicate copies in storage of every single one of those paintings.
Yeah, because every time we teach it, we end up with an extra copy.
Every time we teach it, we end up with an extra copy. And just drying my brush here. And so we didn't really feel the need to keep those paintings.
No, especially since we've got a whole storage unit full of, well,
that's
not
what
anymore.
I was just saying.
The back room full of the exact same paintings.
Yes. Okay.
I'm sorry, I was painting.
What I want to do now is we want this to dry. Shouldn't take too long. I didn't use a super thick coat of paint. This looks really pretty on its own right now. It kind of looks like it could be a tie-dye something or another. I like the way it looks. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dab on some just plain yellow. Just pick up a little with your brush. See, I have very little. Brush? Yeah, I did clean and dried.
Okay.
And I just think of this as like little confetti. And if it feels too bright, like this is really pretty bright on mine. I probably mixed my original yellow on that original painting. A little more yellow and less white. But if it feels too yellow, you can mix a little white into it. And just let some of this flirt with the tree foliage too. But just be careful coming back in here that you don't get green in the center. It wouldn't be the ultimate tragedy, but it'll make your life easier if you don't. So just wipe your brush off once in a while if needed. So I'm just feathering this in, and I have very little paint on the brush. Every time I add very little paint. And I could even soften some of these with some white. I do like doing that, then it adds just little bright spots in the sky. Almost like one of those days where you've got thin clouds, but you've got a few little bright spots from the sun coming through. It's a nice look. And I'm just using the full length of this brush rather than poking it down. It's more of a swipe, like tap, swipe, tap, swipe.
Swipe or no swiping?
Paul's poking his down.
Poke it.
This particular painting, I did a couple versions of. The first one was on 11 by 14 canvas, and I just felt like it needed a square canvas, but it also had a blue background, which my 15-year-old daughter informed me that she hated. So, you know, it's always nice to have that, have someone that will give you the complete lowdown.
She's honest.
She's honest. No beating around the bush with that one, that's for sure. But also, I feel it looks way better with this bright yellow and green background. So it was a good choice in the end. I'm gonna wash my brush now. I'm gonna take a sip of my rosé. We're gonna set this big brush aside, so make sure you wash it really good. We may use it for filling in the oranges, probably. at least most of the oranges. Sometimes you might do a combination of the larger brush and a smaller brush. But for now, we're going to go down one size. So this next brush I'm using in my set, which we sell on our website, gobox.com, this is a number 8 flat. Dimensions-wise, it's about a 1/4 inch wide. And I'll go ahead and dip it in the water cup. Let those bristles sort of soften up and dry it off. And we're going to go right for white paint. We are going to move to this point. Actually, right here. We were here and we were sort of here and now we're fully here. Now the oranges, I don't really have any that are necessarily tucked behind others too much, but I do have several that go off the sides of the canvas, and I like that look. You can overlap them because we do fill in everything, so everything gets covered up. So any of these outlines you're putting on right now are not, you're not fully stuck with these. So I'm dipping my brush in white paint. I'll just start with this little half circle right up here. They can be slightly lumpy. When you fill them in, it's easier to smooth them out. And I'll do one right here. And they can be slightly different sizes, but in general, on that particular painting, they're really close in size. Some are navel oranges, some are clementines, I guess. But they're all pretty close in size.
Wouldn't they, if they're all on the same tree, wouldn't they all be the same oranges?
Yeah, they would be, definitely. There wouldn't be clementines. I'm just talking size-wise.
Oh, okay.
And they probably would a lot of times be very similar in size because they all kind of get ready to harvest at the same time, I would think.
I think so.
Okay, so
I'm not a farmer, but
here.
I play one in the backyard.
You try. So this is where I was talking. You can overlap. Like I could overlap this one and just plan on filling that in. I could add more. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 up in the original, so I'll just stick with that. I try to, when I teach these online, I try to stick with pretty close. I may occasionally go rogue. Down here, same thing. I'm going to start with this corner, just because it's easy. And I'm just using the thin edge of this brush to draw everything on. And I'll do one here. And let's see, where else? Looks like I tucked a little guy in here. I've been wanting to do an orange blossom painting forever because I think the flowers are really pretty. I love flowering fruit trees. They're all over our neighborhood. We don't have orange trees because we're in Oregon. But we have lots of cherry trees.
Cherry
apple
and
trees,
plum and apple.
and pear.
And yeah, some pear.
In the gorge.
Yeah. Well, they definitely grow in our area. We just don't have any in our neighborhood.
So if it helps for you to think of these as bubbles as you're drawing them on, you can totally do that. Sometimes it's best to just let your mind go into other realms so that you're not really fully focused on this is an orange and I have to get it perfect. No, you're painting bubbles. All right. I'm going to wash this brush and we're going to let these dry just a little bit. We do paint them white, but because we have some wet green under there, they need to stay where they're at for the time being. And we're going to paint some green leaves. Now these green leaves are popping out of lots of different places and they just sort of face each other. I have some horizontal, some are pointing downwards, some are kind of going at an angle. And they definitely need 2, maybe even 3 coats of paint because the first ones that you put on there will be very see-through and you won't like them at first until they get a second coat of paint. But one thing I want to show. I do paint in between. I didn't give any of these a second coat, these areas in between, but I did want it to be pretty dark green like there are leaves and foliage there. All right, we're going to mix yellow and blue to make green. With my same brush I was just using, so that's my number 8 flat, the one I said was about a 1/4 inch wide. And mix up a green you like. It doesn't have to be the same green I use. You can have more of a blue green or you can have more of a yellow green. I did about equal parts of yellow to blue. More blue will give you more of a teal color. kind of like we used in, I think our hydrangea painting had a pretty teal color. This is definitely very Kelly green. It's hard to, or shamrock green. It's hard to see in the video because of shadows, but that's what it is. And you might wash your brush and dry it off before starting to draw with it because you've got a glob of paint on it from mixing, and having it nice and clean will allow you to draw a little bit better. Now if you prefer to draw with a little round brush, definitely pick that up and do it. I might even do that with some of the smaller leaves. But I'll just start, let's start with just filling in between. So sometimes you have like a little hourglass shape, these little triangular areas.
I didn't end up with any in-betweens.
Failure. I did put a leaf here on the original, but I have a lot smaller space on this one, so I'm just going to fill it in with green and call it a leaf. And then down here I've got some gaps too, little triangular spaces.
But I suppose I could like squeeze a little leaf in here.
Go for it. Anytime you feel like you need to use a smaller brush than what I'm using, because you'll have maybe smaller spaces, or you feel more comfortable using a little guy. You know what? This is not pointing the right way. There.
Somebody must have bumped it.
You did. It was you.
Actually, that usually means it was you, but that's okay.
I may have turned it when I turned it off last time. All right. So in just a second here, we'll do some leaves. And you can always go back and add a second coat to these areas that we just painted. But they do need to dry before you'll add a second coat, because that's how acrylic paint plays. Let's just do a little tiny leaf that comes out between these two, and really they're just kind of elongated almond shapes. And I don't do a whole thing because some of it's going to be behind the oranges. And then I'll do one down here. You can draw all the leafy shapes out first and then fill them in, or you can do them one at a time. But I'll draw them all out first. I like to put them in between the oranges. This one here just is long and big and it just points horizontally. But remember, don't draw the whole thing. You draw about 3/4 of it. And then I have one that just dangles off the top here, which I like because it shows this tree goes on further. There's a lot more crops of oranges there, and you can put more leaves than I did if you want. You could have like a double leaf thing going on here. Just depends on what you like. So I'll do one here. And you know what, maybe I'm gonna be a little different on this. I'm gonna do a double leaf thing.
How dare you? Dare to be different.
And one here. So every time I'm just, this one ended up with a pretty full leaf shape. But most of the time, just having part of it being hidden behind the oranges. This one's going to point off to the right. And I can have a little guy here. Who's texting you?
Nobody.
Okay. I'm just making sure it wasn't one of our kids. Okay. One thing, looking at this, the way it's laid out, I see these are all very evenly spaced, which I don't love. So I'm going to tuck a little small guy in here just to break up anything that resembles a pattern. And let's just start filling these in. If you need to use a small brush to get into the tips of any of these, then definitely do it. But just keep in mind, a thin coat here is perfect because we do go back and add another coat at least. And your next shade of green, it doesn't even have to be the same green. You can tweak it a little bit if you want to have, maybe you got this on and you realize you didn't love this shade of green, or you wanted a darker bluer green. The second coat doesn't have to be the same shade.
Opportunities for adjustments.
Yeah. I love filling in shapes. It kind of reminds me of like color books. What I do with my brush, and I'll turn my canvas a lot and able to be reach. To be able to, I can't talk.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Able to reach. And I like to do long brush strokes that sort of follow the shape of the leaf.
I was just looking up to see what orange leaves really look like.
They're pretty close.
They look just like this.
Mm-hmm.
So quite possibly the easiest leaves you will ever paint.
Yeah, I looked at some pictures before I did this. This particular painting ended up being a little more illustrative than I normally would do. If I, had a lot of time and if I did a really long video, I would shade these and try to make them a little more realistic. But in the end, the outline that we put around these makes them pop out, and it's an easy way to finish off a painting. But normally I'd probably spend a lot of time on just shading them and eliminating outlines by using good shading technique.
I don't think that would work for this painting.
I don't know. It might. Like, there's this one stage where I liked it, but I wasn't 100% sure. I kind of felt like I needed to go that extra step, so I did. And then I was locked in. I've got a suggestion for you for next month.
Okay.
I think so remember your painting that you did years ago that was like the old swing?
Yeah,
I think something like that with a barn. Didn't it have a barn on it?
it did.
Yeah, something like that might be neat. That was a neat painting. It was very summery. It had that very summery feel. If you don't do it this time, you could do it some other time.
That feels like an August painting to me, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of end of summer feeling.
Pour yourself a glass of sweet tea and kick back on the tire swing.
Or a mint julep.
A mint julep.
Let's wash this brush.
Unless you're underage, and then it's sweet tea.
Okay, this next step is done purely to make the oranges really pop when they're painted. And there were a couple different ways I could have done this, but I opted to just paint these white. And then I have a nice white base to get the orange going on it. So let's take our biggest brush, and you just need a thin coat, so don't overload these oranges. If they still are slightly greenish, that is totally fine. The orange will pop on top of light pale green too. We just want them lighter than they are now. So just a thin coat that you spread out. If you need to use a smaller brush, you can do that. And right now I'm not worried too much about like sharpening the edges of these oranges or anything. It's just getting the pop of color on there, the white. The pop of non-color. Sometimes you can just spin your brush around. Have you ever seen them make like crepes this way? Or even vinyl records were made that way, I think, right? Were they?
Yeah. Well, vinyl records, they would do that to kind of spread it out before they would press them.
Yeah, cool. I only know that from that one Ben Harper video. I think it's the Diamonds on the Inside video.
I think it is.
Yeah, and someone in the beginning is doing that. It looks like they're making a crepe, but it's a record. Don't worry too much if you accidentally smear a little fresh green leaf paint in here. That's not going to be a big deal. Feel free to pause. I'm going to mention that once in a while if you feel like it's moving a little too fast. It's the downside of teaching online. We can't see where you're at, so we don't necessarily know where to slow down.
Life comes at you fast sometimes.
Yeah.
You just gotta slow it down.
Hmm.
I think that was from Ferris Bueller's Day Off or something similar to that, but I don't know. I totally botched it, probably.
I hope you guys take some time and slow down this summer. I know we had, like, with the pandemic, it was we've been slowed down. But definitely enjoy the summer. That's what I plan on doing. We'll be doing some painting and remodeling in here, but we're pretty much taking a lot of the summer off outside of some pre-scheduled events we already have.
Well, and then the Go Box.
And the Go Box, yes. Go Box will always be there. We sell quite a few subscriptions around the holidays. They make really good gifts, and we have a 3-month subscription, which is perfect because then you're not having to be stuck with paying for someone's subscription for years and years every month. And it gives someone a little taste of what it's like and if they like doing it. And then most people will just take over the subscription or subscribe themselves after that 3-monther runs out. So it is if you have someone who you think would like doing this, it is a fun gift. We've sold quite a few that way. Mother's Day, there were a few people that bought them for Mom.
Mm-hmm. In fact, a lot of Mother's Day people this is actually their first painting with us.
Well, happy Mother's Day to you guys.
Just based on our shipping schedule.
That's right.
Mother's
Yes,
Day
you were
is.
absolutely right. I talked to someone who this was going to be their first box. That was a Mother's Day present, so... Cool. Happy Mother's Day. Almost to Father's Day. Father's Day we'll be teaching at Skamania Lodge.
Mother's Day we did too.
Actually, it's not Father's Day. It's the Saturday before.
Oh.
I can't remember what painting I have. It's one of yours.
Hmm.
Oh, it's Serenity Beach.
Oh.
So that's one that we did in the Go Box early on. I don't remember when. September, something like that.
Yeah, it was in 2020. I think it was August or September of 2020.
All right. If you have a lumpy orange here and there.
Hey, oranges
They probably
have
lumpy.
lumps.
And they likely are kind of pale green. I definitely have that going on. If it's maybe hard to see, but right through here, this is pale green, and that's totally fine. Now what I'm going to do is, having taken the time to do that, we've got white oranges growing now. These could be like those poisonous white berries, blown up version. I'm going to actually give these leaves a second coat of paint now because they've dried long enough with taking the time to paint the oranges white. So you may need to mix up some fresh green, and like I was telling you, it does not have to be the exact same shade. It can be more of a blue-green or more of a yellow-green. And I don't know which one I started with first here. I know I painted in between first. Like I said, I didn't do a second coat on the original for these little in-between spaces, so you don't have to do that. It looks totally fine. In fact, I kind of botched it a little bit just now, giving it a second coat. See if I can fix that up. I utilize the thin edge of this brush a lot. And I need to wipe some excess paint off because I didn't wash or wipe my brush after I mixed the paint. So I've got the glob on there. But yes, I utilize this thin razor edge of the brush a lot with different paintings. So you can use the whole tool. My leaves on my original, I think, were more the bluer variety. This time they're a little more on the green side. Again, feel free to turn your canvas. Some of you guys might be working on easels too. We don't work on easels on the videos because it would be really hard to get a zoomed in view of this without my head in the way. So this works good. And then you can paint flat. Easels are not necessary, but a lot of you like to have them. So I recommend just purchasing an inexpensive easel from a local craft store until we actually have them for sale.
Which is something we've been talking about since before we even started.
We've never stocked them. There is part of it's the shipping issue. Like, we'd have to find a good long box for those that the Go Box crate could go into if needed. Well, our air conditioner broke this week during a heat streak. It didn't really break. I think it just, it still worked for blowing room temperature, which meant 82 degrees air.
That basically means it broke.
Yeah, but I think actually that guy called today and left a message. It stopped working properly.
It basically said, I'm too old for this.
Yeah, it was old. It's as old as the house, so 1996.
Actually, the AC was made in 98, so it was put in afterwards.
Oh, okay. But yeah, it's they don't last forever, man. Big expense there if we want to stay cool. I know where some of you guys live, it gets hotter than blazes. In Oregon, if it gets up to about 85, we're dying.
Well, hold on, be fair. It was 98 one day and 97 the other day, so it's not like it was like 87 degrees.
No, I can deal with like 85. Like Hawaii is pretty much 85 every day where we would go, but you do have the ocean to go jump into, so there's that.
It was 85 in the house.
Yeah, 85 in the house doesn't feel so good as 85 in Hawaii. So yeah, coming up on our agenda, big expense. Subscribe, send us a donation. Sponsor us. All right. Okay, so I've got my second coat, and I can tell already a third coat really will make these leaves look a lot better. But it's not 100% necessary if you like them the way they are. My biggest recommendation would be just keep your brush strokes end to end and nice and long as the leaf. Just follow the direction of the leaves. And we're going to start, assuming these are dry, they'll turn into peaches if they're not. It's actually drying pretty fast through here. We're going to start filling in these oranges. The way I do this is different. Very, very different. So I wanted them to be affected by this bright light source coming in here. So all of these front edges that face the light source are going to be a light kind of tangerine color, so a yellow-orange. And then the areas that are facing away from the light source are going to be shaded, and then we sort of glaze over it all with the plain orange, and it all comes together and you end up with more of a shaded. So I'll point that out here. You've got a lot of yellow-orange through here, and then we're going to actually mix up kind of a almost brownish orange for shading, and then I join them together with the plain unmixed orange. So brush wise, probably this same number 8 would be good. I think because we have a lot of these rounded edges to contend with, and I can tell from the way my brush strokes are, that's what I did. So let's take and mix yellow and orange. Just make a Sunny D color. Sunny Delight or Tang for those of you who grew up drinking that kind of thing. Bright, unnatural Cheeto orange. And I'll just start with, let's see, which ones did I fill in with white first? That's what I normally would do because they're going to be a little bit more dry. I think it was these upper ones, but oh well if not. I'm going to trace along here using the chisel edge of my brush. And then I literally am going to do these kind of curved brush strokes that go back. If it feels too yellow and is really competing with your background color, throw a little more orange paint in there. That's exactly what I'm going to do. This mine is definitely feeling a little more yellow than orange. I want it somewhere in between. So make sure you cover all of your white. You don't want any white outlines peeking through. Careful around your green leaves if they're still wet. And I'm going to go ahead and work my way through these. So the shading goes about close to halfway up, if not a little further. This highlight ends up reducing down quite a bit as we add the other colors in. When I did the original, I did end up with, I had this one orange that, remember we were looking for the hairdryer like crazy?
Yeah.
We have a hairdryer here that we use to speed dry things, and I could not find it. And I had this one orange that had a lot of thick white paint on it because I ended up covering it up and redoing it. And I could never find the hairdryer, so I had to work with it, and it had so much wet white paint that it just turned peach, and it made me think I should do a peach painting sometime. I think peaches are so cute.
Moving to the country.
They look like cute little butts. Alright, so I got this upper set of oranges done, and then I'm just going to do the same thing down here, only make sure you face the bright part out towards the sun. You could do water irises, Paul, like Monet style.
Oh, yeah.
We've got some pretty yellow water irises right now at home. I love this time of year because there's so many flowers and flowering trees. And they all have the green leaves. And it's so pretty when it rains when it's like that. And we've had some rain the past couple days.
After getting
which is
blasted
nice.
by the blast furnace.
Fate is smiling on us right now with our AC problem.
Yeah.
Giving us a chance to make it happen. Saying, if we don't do it, the heat's gonna come. Being a homeowner, wow, once your home reaches over 20 years old, good Lord, it's might as well just have a, I don't know, might as well have a bank account set aside for just that.
Most
really,
people do, actually.
Do they? Well,
so.
We're bad then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they plan for that stuff.
Where was your planning on that, Paul? Huh? So it looks really funny right now. But most paintings go through the look really funny phase. Gonna wash the brush off, and now we are going to start shading the other side. And at first it will look really strange because we're going from extreme light color to quite a bit darker. And then when we glaze over it and blend it all with this orange, it comes together. So what we do to make that kind of brownish shade, let me show it to you again. It's still orange. It's just got a darker quality to it. Definitely brownish orange. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some of this aside, and I'm going to take the tiniest bit of black because the black will overpower it really fast. And just gradually add a little. This is probably, I'm going to hold my brush up here. could be. That's probably about right. It could be maybe even a tiny bit darker, but let's go with this. And I'm going to trace along the back. And just let them meet. I think I'm going to make it a tiny bit darker. Okay, there we go. Let them meet.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'll bring this shading down towards the front sometimes. We actually end up eliminating a lot of the highlight. They look like they're wearing little bowl cuts. See, like I could put 2 little eyes there and be a little dude with a bowl cut. Now I'm going to wash the brush and show you how I use the orange to blend it in. Might be too wet, but we'll see. So I'll just dip my clean brush in orange. Yeah, it's too wet. So I'm going to go through and do the weird shading on all of them, and then I'll go back with the orange and show you what I was just trying to show you right now. This is what happens when we do live videos. A little trial and error.
We're totally unscripted.
Unscripted. I don't use a lot of paint on my brush either, because I like it to kind of just run out of paint when it meets up and sort of intermingles with this tangerine color. Best if it just sort of runs out of paint. This one I almost had too much. And the cool thing is you can always go back and add more of the yellowy orange to these if you feel like you end up reducing too much of it. We do add highlights on these as well. I wonder how, it's kind of funny to think that whoever named oranges just called it orange. Why didn't they call a lemon yellow?
Maybe they did it the other way around.
Name the color after the fruit? That could be. Actually, I think I've seen memes about that. Could very well be. Someone out there knows. So you do want to make sure you don't have white outlines trying to make themselves known in there. Those are going to dry as I fiddle with it a little bit more. They're going to dry while I come down here. This is probably as close to a still life painting of fruit that I've ever done. I really admire people who can do, like Jeremy, who can do these amazing still lifes.
Yeah.
And just completely replicate every little detail. It's really amazing. We have a cousin who can do that.
You have a cousin who can do that. You have a cousin whose husband can do that. Let's just...
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually not family related, not blood related. He's had some pretty successful shows. So his still lifes are not of like fruit. They're, one of my favorites that he did are these like 5 metal rings that are kind of look like they're hammered. They're really, really neat.
definitely a talent there.
Mm-hmm. So right now we're creating a whole new type of fruit. So your shading just sort of follows the roundness of the fruit itself. You'll see through it here and there. You'll see canvas through it. It will look very unfinished. So if you feel like it's looking very unfinished, you are on track.
Guess what? It's not finished.
Nope, we've got a little bit left to go for sure. And then I'll just kind of take a look while I've got them all done and see if I need to add anything else.
Mine are starting to look more like mangoes.
Yeah, you're shading yours with green.
Yeah.
All right.
It'll work when it's
Let's wash
done.
the brush.
Trust me on this one.
If you need to catch up, just pause.
Ketchup, mustard?
Man, I'm hungry. Ketchup mustard makes me think of French fries, which I can't have right now. Okay, so let's take just plain orange. I'll start with this first one, see how dry it is. It might not quite be dry enough, and it's not. It's what it's doing is what acrylic paint does.
Is it lifting?
When it's too wet, yes, it kind of lifts that and pushes around the original coat of paint. So that definitely needs to dry a little bit longer. So I'll take this opportunity to work on my leaves a little bit more.
Third coat.
I actually do, so what I do here is not a third coat on the whole thing. It is kind of a third coat, but they're done in two different colors. So I'm going to mix up some more green, and now let's make this one a little deeper. This is going to be our shadow on the leaf. So a little bit deeper than that original green, and by adding a little more blue, that's what I'm achieving here. This blue is great. I love this color. And I love the consistency of it too. So I have half of these leaves shaded and half with a highlight. So on this one, I'm going to shade this half. So the way I do it is I draw a line down the middle, and I just paint one half of the leaf the darker color of green. So it's like you're giving it a second coat. This one here, I just decide which part I want to be highlighted. This one I have the highlight on the left, so might as well stick with that because that sort of follows the pattern of the light source for this painting. So draw the line down the middle first and then shade half of it. Depending on how dark or bluish you made your color, this will really show up. I'm going to make this one a little bit bluer just to see. But yes, the leaves on the orange tree are kind of like folded almost. You can see they kind of look like that from the side. I've never seen them in person really, I don't think. The oranges we get are not necessarily with leaves.
Not on a tree.
I'm going to shade the upper half of this. Okay, so now I'll work on these guys. Decide which side you want to highlight. I'm going to continue keeping it on the left. This one was kind of, could have gone either way. So draw that line down the middle and paint the right side.
So quiet in here.
I know, I was thinking the same thing. I'm going to actually shade this side here. These can be kissed by sunlight on the inside edges. And I'll shade the left side here. I don't have to do anything unless you want to. There's no need to do anything funky with these in between spaces. I'll wash the brush. We could leave it like this and call it highlighted, but I know a lot of us have canvas showing through where it maybe just looks like it needs a second coat of paint. So I'm going to mix up I'm going to take some of this green I have already and mix more yellow with it. And then I believe I mix in a little bit of white. Let's see. Yeah, a little white to get more of a celery green. Very similar, almost exactly like the color we started with. Maybe a little darker, less white then. So this should be closer to your celery green, and it will work great as a highlight. I think I need a little lighter. Now you don't have to paint the whole half of the leaf. You could just do a little swoop of the light color. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to poke you with my brush.
I thought you were like trying to get my attention or something.
Hey, you.
I was like, what'd I do?
So this is going to accomplish a couple things. It's going to give more contrast and depth and also tackle that need for a second coat of paint. I think if I had more time on this painting, which you can do anything you want to this painting after, you know, when we're done and you want to keep working on it, like a little ladybug or a butterfly or something would be really fun, or a bee somewhere tucked in here would be really cute. Okay, so now these oranges need some help. They're probably dry enough. They don't have to be 100% dry, but mostly sticky or tacky to where the paint first coat will accept a second coat. I'm going to dry that brush off. Go right for orange paint. I'm going to start at the back. So this orange paint is transparent enough that you'll be able to see some of that shade color through it, the brownish color. And where this meets down here, let's see what it looks like if I glaze over it. It's pretty much close to the same color as, it's really close to the whole orange, so I kind of lost a little bit of shading by doing that. So I'll show you on this next one what the best thing to do is. So we'll start back here. Not a lot of paint on the brush. I have very little. I say grab more, but I really don't have a lot of paint on the brush. It should almost feel like your brush is dragging a little bit. So here is what I do differently. So I bring this wet paint down. And now I'm going to make sure I have some of this tangerine color that we made earlier. A little more yellow. And I don't even wash the brush. I'll just dip it in there. Oops, fling some on my canvas here. And coat over the front edge and just blend that up. So let's look at the difference. Quite a bit different here. Maybe harder to see. Zoom in.
High-tech zoom technology.
It looks different on my end. And this next one, I've already got the yellow orange on here, so let's just start with the highlight part. Get some fresh paint there. Work kind of fast, and while that's still wet, grab just orange without washing your brush. Bring it into meat. So this is sort of doing a wet on wet type of painting, which is what we do with oil paint a lot of times. And I love that. It creates the most amazing blends. Okay, confused at my colors, so. I'm gonna go back to regular orange, bring that in here. Bring the wet paint down. Now I will dip my brush in, well, I've used it all. Dip my brush in the tangerine color and bring that back up and just let them play together. And you can keep working with this until you get a blend you like. Now I have a lot more shading on my original. So I used a higher contrast of darker shading. And I'll show you how to do that if you like. So I'll show you the original real quick. Let's look. See the difference? Quite a lot more brown. I'm gonna tilt this, it's gonna glare. Quite a lot more brown on those oranges on the original. And I know a lot of that I likely added later, so wash the brush. You want a pretty dry brush for this part if you're gonna up the contrast, and you can leave these just as they are. They're perfectly fine. But if you wanna try shading a little more, I'll mix up the color first. You want it more on the brown side, less black. It's almost like a rotting fruit color, actually. These are the oranges you don't want, but really it's just shadows making that orange color look darker. So there I've got a darker color, but I have a lot on my brush from mixing it. So I'm gonna wipe a lot of that off. And I'll start back here. I need it actually a little darker. This orange is a little too wet. This one's causing me some problems. Let's see what other one I can go work with. How about this one up here? Yeah, so I have very little paint on my brush, and I'm just putting a whisper of that on here.
Whisper.
And I let the brush run out of paint as I get closer down to the light highlight color. And I can just keep doing this. I can keep adding coats of this in small batches until I get it to where I like it. Now these oranges are too wet for what I'm doing right now. They do not like what is happening. So I'm going to let them dry and work on these. And then I'll show you more of the shading I was just doing. Okay, wash that brush, dry it. Let's work on these. Make sure you have a fresh batch of both orange and the yellow orange. I've got yellow orange on my brush from mixing, so I'll just start with that color. Give it just a quick second coat here and blend it up in. So while it's still wet, then dip it in the orange paint. And give it a quick second coat. And let those two just meet and mix, the two wet paints. You don't need a lot of this yellow-orange showing. We want these to definitely look like oranges and less like some other kind of fruit that's yellow-orange. Kumquat, I don't know. But we want it to definitely look like they are oranges, but just highlighted. So I've got just plain orange on my brush now, so I'm going to start with that. And you can see how I'm just sort of flip-flopping between the two. This one technically would be in quite a lot of shadow from this one sitting on top of it. There might just be a tiny highlight along here. So, wait, I have a lot of paint. I'm gonna go for the yellow-orange now. Looks like I somehow got a little black in there. And just let those two wet paint colors blend together. It's coming together. Yeah, that looks good up there, Paul.
Thank you.
You're doing good.
You questioned my green.
I questioned your green, so you had to like kick it into high gear.
No, it's not really kicked into high gear.
Okay, go right for the orange because I was just using the yellow orange. This particular orange I use, it's so vivid and it's more opaque than a lot of oranges that we've, like if we mix yellow and red, that particular orange, it's really hard to get this exact shade. So we actually buy this one pre-made and it's really vivid. That's what I love. So we use this for Halloween paintings when we have pumpkins in them. It's perfect. Okay, well this is still wet. Go for my tangerine. Let's work around that little black splotch. Don't know what happened there. Let those two colors mix. And remember, we're going to outline these, so if you have any weird spots, like I've got some weird area there, outlining is going to help. But right now, they look pretty, and I'm going to up the shading just a little bit so it's more like the original. But you don't have to do it. It could just stay like this and be perfectly fine. If you're really scared to add any brown of any kind on here, you don't have to. All right. My oranges are still really wet. So I'm just gonna sit back and drink wine. Just kidding.
No, you're not.
I'm gonna take a sip. Just a little sip. We're gonna skip into outlining just a little bit while outlining the leaves while the oranges dry some more. And we outline in brown, and the way it's a dark brown, darker than that shady color we were making, but it is black and orange mixed together. Still using this number 8 flat for those of you who have this same set. And I'll just mix it in this. Orange and black till you get a very dark chestnut brown. There we go. Now I outline the leaves with the little brush. This one is way too big for that. So let's just wash this guy. Set him aside. Let him take a break. So our little pointy guy is what we want. And anytime I use this brush, I like to mix a drop of water into the paint and stir it around, making it more fluid. The consistency of like yogurt is perfect. Yogurt heavy cream. Maybe closer to heavy cream, it's a little thinner. And if you have a lot of paint on your brush from mixing it up like we just did, you can take on your palette or towel, just pull and twist, and then you can re-dip the tip of the bristles in. I'll just start with this guy since it's right in front of me. And I'm just going to really lightly, I'm not pressing very hard, so I'm kind of hovering. You can even balance your pinky on your canvas. And I'm holding the brush real close down on the metal ferrule like you would hold a pen. That'll give you a little more control. Sometimes for certain things we want to hold further back on the brush, but for this sort of thing, we want the control. And use your canvas to balance your hand on if needed. If you're one of those that can really easily just hover over it without having to balance your hand on it, then you are awesome, and I would continue to do that. And feel free to turn your canvas. I find that pulling towards me works a little bit better for me than painting away from me. Come to me, paint. And just draw that vein right down the middle. The lighter you press, the thinner your lines are going to be. It's something that takes practice. It's a great thing to practice. You can make a whole sheet of paper where you go through, I'm just gonna go off topic for 1 second here. You can make a whole sheet of paper where you practice pressing hard and then lightening your pressure. And then maybe start light and then press hard, then go light. It's really good practice. And you can make maybe some kind of sellable art there. Who knows? Somebody might buy it.
If you come up with a good enough story.
That's right. Give it a clever name, come up with a story, boom. People are sold. Some people might find outlining kind of quick is easier because then your brain doesn't have time to go, oh, wait, what are you doing? Wait, what? I tend to work that way before my brain can go, hold on, stop. You might mess this part up. So there you can see outline leaves versus non-outline leaves. They're, I don't know, either way, I kind of like both. We love to see your guys' paintings. I loved how many of you guys posted the Ewoks on our Facebook page. So it's our Facebook group. So that's the one that you have to, it's not like a business page. It's a group page that, where you can talk about topics, discuss things. It's called Go Box Art Crate, the full name on Facebook. You have to request to join and we'll approve you. And you can see other people's artwork and you can post your own. We love to see it. We love to know you guys are doing paintings with us.
I did kick somebody off the other day.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Same person kept posting promotional stuff for some tattoo expo in Australia.
Oh, yeah, we get that once in a while.
And I was like,
they'll just join any art discussion page.
I got no problem with tattoos, obviously, but...
But it's not the right page for it.
It has nothing to do with
where I'm at here. There we go.
Go box.
Let's see. Those are nice and, well, mostly dry. So we are going to outline our oranges. We could do that now, but I'll show you real quick on the shading. I was going to up the contrast. Let's show that original again. Let's put them side by side. You can see definite deeper shading than here. Either way is fine. But because the original is that way, I like to show you. This is too dark. That was our outline color. So, but I'll use some of it. I'll just pop some orange down and grab some of that. Stir it in. This is probably about right, yeah. So that's, I have too much paint on my brush. This is something you want very little. Wipe it all off and just take it and pull it inward towards the highlight. And when it gets like this and your brush has run out of paint and it's looking kind of crusty, take your orange paint. I didn't even wash my brush, but I'm just sort of glazing over where this shadow meets the rest of the orange. Every little step you do right now needs to have very little paint. If anything, you can start off with a little more, but you need to not re-dip your brush too much. Just work with that. I can't decide which of these oranges is in front of the other.
I know, that's kind of something I've been trying to figure out as I've been going too.
So letting my brush run out of paint, I can't really drag much more below here. And I'll just take a little orange paint and right at the edge where this dark meets the orange, just glaze over it. And that softens up any weird edges as long as you use a little bit of paint, not much. So there, I feel like that's a lot better. Looks a lot more cylindrical. Spherical, that's the right word.
Yeah, not cylindrical.
Yeah, cylindrical would be like a tall.
Like a can.
Yeah. Spherical. Actually, one of our first projects in basic design was to shade a sphere and a cylinder. We had to do like a hairspray can drawing. It's good practice to really start understanding shading things on a curve. This one, I had a lot of paint on the brush and I'm just working it in. We wipe some of that off, smear it around. And it looks pretty ugly right now, but when I take this orange, give it a little glazy glaze, it kind of spreads it out better. Fills in any weird holes and definitely gives an improvement. As long as you use very little paint. I don't have a lot of room with this one. So I'm just gonna get a little bit along here where it would probably be in shadow from this other orange. Again, you don't have to save a lot of this yellow-orange highlighting. We do put one more highlight on these. Okay, I'm gonna flip around. Start with this bad boy way up here. Feels uncomfortable. Just kind of trust the process with this. Go for the orange. Look at that. This helps so much. Your brush should be making noises. You should hear it scratchy. That means you're using the right amount of paint. I feel like this big monster orange back here has almost too much highlight, so I'm going to bring some of this plain old orange color back down here. We're nearing the end. We don't have a whole lot left to do. How are we doing time-wise, Paul?
We are at an hour and 18 minutes.
Oh, perfect. So this one should land at maybe a little over an hour and a half. Oh, I'm getting a call from Spam Risk, my favorite. My favorite kind of call. Right at dinner time, too. How about that? Almost always, like 99% of the time, it's the car warranty. Do you want to extend your car warranty?
No, I just bought a new car. That's all you have to tell them. I'm not kidding. I've done it before.
I don't even answer them.
Well, no, I don't anymore because it tells me it's a spam risk. But
isn't that nice? It's so nice.
But I do get calls from customers. Not that, for other customers that are local. For my other job, and I gotta answer those calls. And
do some of them say spam risk?
Yeah, they do now.
Really? The customers?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't answer the ones that say spam risk.
This orange is causing me issue all night long. It's like, it's the orange that is cursed. It's wanting to not take paint, not dry, not take the paint, all of that.
I get that sometimes you get these little pockets, it feels like, and the paint just doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do.
I hope you guys are doing okay with the shading of the oranges. I will be curious if you want to join our page and let us know how that went. Key thing, little tiny bit of paint. I have too much on this one. So So I'll do what I did earlier, wash my brush and dry it off really good and just use it as a smudging tool, kind of smudge out the edges as I bring it closer to the light source, then take the orange paint. Give it little glazes. And your brush strokes can go different directions here. It looks very painterly to do that. I like to do that. Definitely follow the curve of the orange, but like in through this area, I'll let my brush strokes go different directions as I try to blend this down. There. Let's go back to my original way. And now I feel like they're shaded nicely. There's a good contrast. Definitely need outlinings if there's funky spots in here that are light. But if you didn't want to outline and you wanted to keep working on them, what you would do is shade around the edges with the darker color, but then try to blend it in so it looks like there's no outlines. And that would be how you would like more realistically shade something for the time-consuming version. But it, you know, it may be worth it in the end. It'll probably look pretty cool. Okay. Let's do a quick highlight on these. So I use a little, I think white and yellow would be a good color here. Try that out. Or, you know what, let's throw a tiny bit of orange in there. Let's make a peach highlight. You don't need much. And let's make it pretty pale. And let's clean this off our brush. If we highlight with this much paint on our brush, you're going to have it where you'll just kind of have to fix it. So I'm gonna wipe that off. And I wiped all of it off just about. And just try it out and see if you need to add more. So I'm following the curve of the orange with just a little shine. That's what this is, it's just a little shine. It doesn't have to be a long stroke, just a quick little short guy. And then on this side we want to do the same thing, facing that light source. So this is where you could get even fancier. I mean, you could blend this in, just kind of dab your brush around it and blend it in if you wanted to. I didn't on the original, I just did a little swipe. But you could also take white, just a little bit. I'll use the corner of my brush and pick up the tiniest little bit of white, and you could add an ultra highlight. So you have a highlight, and then you have this little ultra highlight tucked in there as well. And you can kind of dab that around too. So now I gotta match that up here. So I took the corner of my brush. Did I pick up any paint? Hard to tell. There, a little bit of white. A little tiny swipe or dot even. I could leave it like that. Or I like just using a clean brush or dried off, wiped off, and just sort of dabbing it around, blending it out that way. They look nice and juicy, ready to eat. And now we're gonna outline. We don't have a whole lot left to do. We're gonna outline, we're going to add the navel and then the branches. And then we are going to paint the orange blossoms lastly. Now the branches are optional. I thought I would tell you guys you can leave them off if you don't like them. If you feel like it really takes away from the rest of this, I would leave them off. You were just kind of an afterthought. And for outlining, I want to use that same color, so that was the black and orange, till you get a dark chestnut brown. Mix a little water with it. Do the pull and twist thing to knock off any excess paint or wipe it on your towel. Re-dip the tip of the bristles. And let's get to it. Let's get to outlining. Now this might be really dark. You could lighten it. Let's do that. Let's lighten it a bit. As I was all ready to go, I'm going to lighten it just a bit so it's a little bit lighter brown. I think because these oranges are so light compared to the leaves, it will look better to have a lighter outline. So here's my color right there. Don't know if you can see it. A little less black. And let's add a droplet of water. Pull and twist. Redip. Which one to start with? Oh boy. How about this one right in front? Yeah, I'm glad I lightened that outline. Just pay attention to which orange goes over the one behind it or under. Whew! Don't hold your breath. Balance your pinky if needed, as long as your orange is pretty dry. Or just float like a feather here as you go around. I feel like I'm slowly gravitating towards being off camera.
It happens.
And this is when I'll kind of clean up, if I have any white spots in here, I just do a slightly thicker outline to sort of clean those up. Occasionally you can add another drop of water to your paint if it feels like your brush is really dragging. Your brush should not drag. You should be able to get a full outline without necessarily having to redip your paintbrush. But I like this color outline being a little bit later. I like it better than the original. That's pretty close to the original actually. Now that I look, so I'm going to add a little drop of water in here. Whew, getting there. Getting there. Let's see a funny area here. I see an unfinished area on my painting, but I'll probably just finish it after. I'm probably going to bring some more green in there. It's like I started it and got distracted, which is very typical of me. Right there.
Oh.
Maybe just outline that.
Yeah,
and
I've
make it a
got
leaf.
some little spots. There's kind of a lot going on in this painting.
There is. What am I doing? This is not me. That's your paintings.
We haven't even gotten to the flowers yet.
I know. Almost. Flowers are easy. And they are something that could be optional too if you like it without the flowers. Everybody has their own preference for what they like. So you'll notice I do turn my canvas a lot when outlining. Let's get some navels on here. They're just dots. I kept it simple. I mean, you could spend a lot of time and shade it perfectly and make a perfectly little shaded navel. But I'm just going to use the same color I used to outline with and pick a spot down here. Give it a little dot. I'm just going to go right here. Same. Now I'm going to put some branches on here. You can decide which brush you want to use for branches. Some of you might like the small one. Some of you might like the one that's a little bit bigger, number 4. One thing that sometimes I'll do, I'll start it with a number 4 and then finish to get the little skinny ends of the branches. I'll use the little brush. That's probably what I'm going to do now. Color-wise, you can use your darkest brown that we did the outlining with the leaves, or you can use this color we were just using, which had a little more orange in it. But do mix some water into your paint. I'm going to use this color we were just outlining. We'll just make these branches a little bit lighter than the original. And I'm using the skinny edge of the brush, which this brush is kind of flared out, so it doesn't really have much of a skinny edge. Lightening my pressure in fact, I lightened it too much. Lifting my pressure on my brush as I go down. And sometimes you have a little spot to repair. Where else? Let's see. So I think of these as like lightning bolts. That's really what they look like. You've got brown lightning bolts coming out of your orange tree. And you can add little extra twigs and branches to make it look more realistic. I'm going to do more of those with the little brush. And where else? Let's see. How about I'll put one right here. Now I'm switching to my little guy. And you can finish off the tips of these branches if needed. Add little more twigs. See, it's like a lightning bolt coming out of the sky. Same over here. They're like spooky branches. Yeah. Hey, they really do look like lightning bolts. I think I said that one too many times, and now they really look like lightning bolts.
You did it. You broke the rule.
I did break the rule. Darn it. So here's where we're at. Just go ahead and finish up your branches. I know sometimes if you haven't painted a lot, take your time. And my teaching is going to go a little bit faster because you can pause me and I'm not there to see exactly where you're at time-wise. But I'm going to go, as long as the outlines are dry, that's the key thing here, which they're already dry. I'm going to start doing the flowers. So the flowers are like a 5-pointed star. So when I put them on, I think of it that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when you draw a star, you have the triangle that points straight up, and then you've got one on either side that goes up, and you've got one on either side that goes down. The flower is put together the same way. Practice some. Find a piece of paper or use your palette and practice before you do them. There is a little technique to it, which I'll show you. I just have them in between. Looking at photos, that's kind of how they are. And you could even put some on the branches if you want. I toyed around with that idea, but didn't end up doing it. Brush-wise, my little guy is pretty flared out, so I'm going to use my number 8. Who was using that one? Number 4. That must be you, Paul. You're hard on the brushes.
That's what I hear.
Sometimes.
Over and over again.
Okay, so here's, trying to think what I could show this on. I guess I'll just show it on the canvas. The best way to do it is think of your flower center, set your brush down, and just do a quick flick. And then set your brush down and do a quick flick out to the side. And then this side. Set it down, flick. So by setting it down, you're going to get a wider petal with it. And then by flicking, you get more of the pointy ends. Now, if you want to use your littlest brush and just draw these out in a way that feels comfortable to you, go for it. So that's a little guy. You could do them a little bigger. So I think of it like a star. Brush down, flick. Just a short flick. Otherwise, you're going to end up with big, long petaled flowers. And I almost always end up with some that have to kind of go back and round out or reshape. It's never going to be, well, hardly ever going to be perfect right out of the chute. I'm going to put one right here. Set it down, flick, flick, flick. By pressing it down first, you get that wider petal at the center of the flower. This really works best with a flat brush. So if you're using a round brush, it'll be slightly different. You can do it, definitely, but a little different. It's harder to get those pointy edges, I would say. Wouldn't you think, Paul?
I don't know. Depends on how big of the brush you're using.
Now you can have multiple flowers overlap.
I did that because I had to.
Yeah, so what I would tell people with this is if you end up with a flower that just looks really like you don't like it at all, sometimes what helps disguise it more is to put one slightly overlapping it, and then you can just be like, oh, well, that's the background flower. You can add like little petals that are maybe dropping through here. I kind of started to do that on the original, but didn't necessarily love it. But your painting, you can decide how many flowers. You can decide what color flowers, how big they are, or how small they are, where they're located. I'd say the most common thing, a lot of people in the classes we do tend to make things a little bigger than they need to be. I don't know why that is. It's probably just
Confidence?
It's when they're new to painting.
Yeah, no, I know.
And
lack of confidence is what I meant.
So they end up being quite large. And what I have told people, and I told people this weekend when we did a class at a winery, we needed these really delicate trees. I said, imagine you're painting a little teacup. And that will kind of help you visualize visualize small flowers. Last step before signing, we need to give these flowers a little center in the middle with the smallest brush.
What are those little are those little flyaway petals? Or
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was just kind of adding noise, I guess.
Such a Jenny thing.
It is such a Jenny thing. I even thought about doing those little floaty fuzzy stars in the background. I was like, I'm going to avoid it. Okay, so now I'm going to add a center to these flowers. It is done in the celery green, which is yellow, white, and a little bit of blue till you get a light celery green. It's very like that green we started with on the corners. And then just dab a little center in. Unless you want to do a different color. It doesn't have to be like what I'm doing or what nature declares. You can do your own. And then signing the painting will be your final step. I like to use a watered down paint for that. Not a lot of paint on the brush, so pull twist. Dip the tip of the brush in. Am I signing it the right direction? Yeah. And I just put my little signature down there. And the oranges are done. Took a little while. What time is it? 8:12. It's almost
hour and 38 minutes.
Yeah.
You can see it when it shows it.
Okay, cool. Let's see it compared to the original. Pretty close. Actually, they're almost identical. Whoa! That's unusual for me. Although these look more like lightning bolts. I kind of like these tree branches better being a slightly lighter color, but it's not a big deal. Now let's see how... Are you finished with yours?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me move my paint rag out of the way.
You can see the different approaches.
Different strokes for different folks.
Mine are lumpier.
I like this. This looks great. It looks like really nested in there, like a lot more contrast.
It almost kind of looks like a brain.
3D. A brain. Yeah, it's a brain.
These ones turned out a little bit more...
The shading through here is great.
Thank you.
Oops, I smeared one of your flowers. Sorry.
Oh,
do I have to sign it now too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the flowers look good. I like it. Very, very nice. That's a good job, Paul.
Thank you.
That's a good job. Yours is a little more realistic looking than mine. And that's what I was saying in the beginning, that this one's feel very illustrative.
So, we've talked about how everybody has their own strengths, and my strength is not smooth and illustrative.
That's why I like doing your paintings. I think it's a good way to get me to loosen up.
Yeah.
From this rigidity.
I think what I would have done differently from the start is actually draw the full circles of each orange. Instead, I kind of tried to nest them. And
so you'd overlap them so that you end up with, rather than maybe some squished ones, you end up with full, That makes sense, but they turned out pretty good.
Like this one right here really looks kind of squishy to me, but it's okay. I'm not going to worry about it.
It's the brain.
It's the brain.
All right. Well,
So,
let's zoom on out.
Here we come back. Hello. Here we are. We're back.
Hope you guys enjoyed watching that or painting along with us, which hopefully maybe you do both.
Yeah, and we got to do all the YouTube kind of, if you liked what you saw, thumbs up.
Paint the like button like one of your French girls.
Yeah, hit that subscribe button. We're creeping up on our subscribers our viewership to subscriber ratio is going up, which is good.
All right, cool.
And we've gained a couple percent in the last couple weeks, which is good. That's what you want.
Nice.
And then what else?
We'll be back for
next week.
City Park
next
Monday and doing it all over again. That's a lot quicker painting than this one.
I think so.
Less detailed.
I think it's going to be an unusual flip-flop for my painting might actually be a little easier, which is kind of
funny.
What? But anyway.
It's Manic Monday.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I guess we'll see you next time. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and we will see you next time.
Adios.
Bye.